1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Worst administration ever. Ever. Hotep Jesus dude. What's up, people?
Hotep.
Oh my God. Worst administration ever. Ever. All right. Woodrow Wilson definitely is giving him a run for his money. All right, let's get into this presentation. We're not going to waste any time. Thank you to everybody who has shared this presentation. I appreciate you for doing so. Likes are cool. Shout out to Let It Die. Likes are cool, but sharing is much more appreciated to get viewers in and increase the subscribers on this channel. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 articles I'm going to bring up today. One of them being my own, because we discussed some of this subject matter previously. Let's get into it. So, the reason why you're here: Biden seen issuing crypto oversight executive order next week. So, what does this executive order exactly entail? Well, it says here they want to study cryptocurrencies and a central bank digital currency. Cyprian Ben told you. I interviewed him. Actually, I didn't interview him. I did a stream with him last week. If you go to menoforder.com, you can see his presentation, which what spawned my idea to write the blog. I'll be writing a blog on this presentation tomorrow. It'll be on menoforder.com. This is our presentation that we did. You were probably here last week. So Hotep's Ben told you, Cyprian Ben told you. We discussed this situation last week. We told you about the warning of a central bank digital currency. We warned you. Funny enough, they call it Project Hamilton, right? And they're naming this after none other than Alexander Hamilton, at least partly named after Alexander Hamilton. Real fast, we now have a dedicated JRE section on our website. So when you come in and you view an episode, it will give you a synopsis with timestamps of all the Joe Rogan episodes. You can navigate there from the menu or from the sidebar, and the episodes will appear right here on the right-hand side of the website. Just wanted to make you aware of that. Shout out to Joe Rogan and the great work he does over there. So that's our way of showing him love and helping people navigate the world of Joe Rogan and the JRE experience, the Joe Rogan experience. Anyway, Project Hamilton, named after Alexander Hamilton. If you've been watching my Patriot Report series, you know we talk about money, the history of money, and how it relates to war. And Alexander Hamilton was definitely in the subject matter. This guy, a proponent of central banking, privately controlled central banking. Lincoln had well, I wouldn't call it central banking per se, as Lincoln had imagined it, but he said the government should be in control of said currency, the issuing and regulation thereof. So we warned you this was coming, right? We showed you about the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston was working with MIT on this Project Hamilton. We talked about the CBDC, central bank digital currency, and we just warned you last week about this. And here we have now Biden is issuing an executive order to study cryptocurrencies and a central bank digital currency. And they want to come up with a government-wide strategy to regulate digital assets. According to an administration official familiar with the matter, the forthcoming directive will commission a study of CBDC and ask a range of agencies, including Departments of Treasury, State, Justice, and Homeland Security, to develop a report on the future of money and payment systems. Meanwhile, the director of the Office of Science and Tech Policy will do a technical evaluation of what might be needed to support a CBDC system. Now, who do you think they're going to call on? This director of the Office of Science and Tech. Who do you think he's going to call on? He's going to call on none other than Project Hamilton. You mean to tell me they didn't know this prior to? So Project Hamilton has been in the works for a couple of years now, and the Biden administration is ready to pull the trigger on the study of this thing, and they're obviously going to reach out to Project Hamilton because they've been heading the way on this in conjunction with MIT and the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. We're going to discuss this. We're going to talk about the Freedom Convoy. We're going to talk about the couple that was caught by the feds for hacking several $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, and how the feds seized that Bitcoin, because some people are unaware of how that happened. They think that they can like hack your account or something like that. Some people believe. So leave me alone. So it says the Financial Stability Oversight Council, FSOC, which sort of reminds me of INGSOC. If you guys aren't familiar with INGSOC, I'll put that on your screen right now. INGSOC is from the book 1984 by George Orwell, abbreviation of English socialism. INGSOC. Here you have FSOC. Do you see it there? Referred to by its non-adherents as oligarchical collectivism. Refers primarily to the totalitarian ideology of the government of Oceania, which at its peak controlled the two American continents, Great Britain and Ireland, then collectively called Airstrip 1, Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, and the southern half of Africa below the Congo River. If you've read 1984, you know what I'm talking about. If you have not, I think you should. It's an amazing read, and just reading it simply will make you a better writer. Anyway, let's continue. So it says, created after 2008 financial crisis to monitor risk to the system. Keep in mind, the 2008 financial crisis was due to a mismanagement by banks and predatory lending. I know I was a mortgage broker at that time, and in 2008 I lost my job, and I had to go back to the drawing board on my career, and that's how I ended up in marketing and tech. So it says we'll be asked to study financial stability issues. The funny thing about financial stability issues, again, if you've read the Patriot Report, the book I wrote, or if you've been following along with the Patriot Report series, nothing creates more financial instability than the central banks, due to their practices of the regulation of coinage, the regulation of monetary policy, and the ugly deflationary and inflationary practices. Let's go down here. It says, meanwhile, the Attorney General, along with the FTC and Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, will be asked to consider what impact the growth in digital assets could have on market competition. Keyword, market competition. They are concerned with Bitcoin being a competitor. They are heavily concerned. Oh my God, you might put us out of business. Now, really quick, let me just stop right here, because there's some people, the same people I see saying, and the Fed are saying Bitcoin is stupid. And those two ideas are diametrically opposed, because Bitcoin is opposed to the Federal Reserve. Bitcoin is financial transactions without an intermediary, without a middleman, without banks, without financial institutions. Now, if you know anything about the Monetary Control Act of 1980, which I've done a presentation on, and I ranked #1 on YouTube for, Monetary Control Act of 1980, put all financial institutions under the regulation of the Federal Reserve banking system. And that basically destroyed competition. Although the Fed was the only one allowed to print money, I guess. But that's what they're afraid of, is market competition. People using anything other than the banker's dollar. It says here the SEC, CFTC, and Federal Reserve, FDIC, OCC are expected to weigh market protection measures within their jurisdictions. Market protection measures. Do you know what market protection measures mean? I'll give you a few seconds to pontificate in the chat. I'll sip my Hotep juice. Hopefully you paused the video and took a time to think about that. If you are watching the replay, if you're watching the live, do not pause the video. Market protection measures. You know what market protection measures is another term for? Communism, socialism, Keynesian economics, the control of prices, etc., etc. So how do they sell this to the public? Well, it says it right here. This is how they're going to sell it to the hoi polloi, the rank and file, the plebeians. The order will also look at measures to protect consumers, investors, and businesses. So what they'll say is, hey, look, we're trying to protect you guys. And that's how they'll sell it. Okay. They'll sell it as, oh, people are doing bad things in crypto. You might lose your money in crypto. You could lose your money in the stock market. You could absolutely lose your money in the stock market. And you can lose your money in crypto. That's why I tell people buy Bitcoin and dollar cost average. You can do so with our app. We literally have an app where you can dollar cost average automatically. I don't think about my Bitcoin purchases. They just come out of my bank account every week. Every week they come out of my account. They're stored. I can pull them off of there. I can bring them to a paper wallet, hard wallet, some other app on my phone. Okay. So that's why I tell people stick to Bitcoin and dollar cost average. Okay. Somebody said, will it be the end of the dollar as a reserve currency? Oh, good question. Let's continue. It says here the FTC chairman and director of the CFPB will also be asked to look at privacy issues potentially created for digital assets. And I think here what they're talking about is two things. One, the public blockchain, because the ledger is public and you can see all the transactions on the blockchain as they happen. And the other thing is the potential for you to be anonymous, you know, by creating things such as paper wallets to store your Bitcoin and make your transactions. Technically, we could have an entire economy that is completely anonymous and nobody has to know about it, unless you got snitches, right? Snitches would be like, hey, I did a transaction with this guy, right? And then, all right, yeah, maybe you're compromised. But if you have a tight-knit community, a trusted, tight-knit community, you could just have an entire economy that lives outside of their dollar, right? And that's what they're afraid of. Again, market competition. Then we're going to talk about why this is important for the Freedom Convoy and the truckers in a moment. They said they're going to have the report within 180 days, something. Okay, it says the government will also look at coordinating other countries around the world to standardize rules for crypto. What is this? I'll give you a second to think about that. What is this? The government will also look at coordinating other countries around the world to standardize rules for crypto. Alex Jones talks about this a lot. What word comes to mind? If you're watching the replay, pause it, think about it. Many of you would call it globalism. After studying the Great Reset, issued by the World Economic Forum from the hands of Klaus Schwab, I would call it Westernism, because really the only people involved in many of these decision making around monetary policies are actually the Western world. Zocast is the first one to get it right. Good job, Zocast. He said globalist, correct. Okay, let's continue. He says the executive order offers the White House, Treasury, and other members of the government the opportunity to weigh in on a digital dollar, a framework for which the Fed unveiled in January. Again, Project Hamilton. Type in Project Hamilton in YouTube. You can read the blog on menofwater.com, but let's type in Project Hamilton. You'll see our presentation right here. It only has 2.9K views, but we own the #1 spot for Project Hamilton. We warned you, do your research. So that's the article from Yahoo Finance in regards to Biden and his executive order. Let's talk about the FBI now, because the FBI is involved in this cryptocurrency matter as well. It says FBI to form digital currency unit. Justice Department taps new crypto czar. It says the U.S. Justice Department has tapped a seasoned computer crimes prosecutor to lead its new national cryptocurrency enforcement team and announced on Thursday that the FBI is launching a unit for blockchain analysis and virtual asset seizure. So basically what they want to do is they want to use the analysis of the public ledger, analyze where transactions are going from and to, and basically just violate your Fourth Amendment rights, and then eventually try to seize your assets. Now we're going to get into how they're able to do this and how they're able to not do this and how you can protect yourself from this, etc., etc. So it says the creation of the FBI's virtual asset exploitation unit, right? And it says here it comes after largest ever financial seizure earlier this month. It charged a married couple, New York couple, allegedly laundering bitcoins now valued at $4.5 billion that were stolen in 2016 in the hack of a digital currency exchange, Bitfinex. So the exchange was hacked. Bitcoin was not hacked. The exchange was hacked. And these people have taken Bitcoin from the exchange. And we're going to dive into that and look at how that happened and how the feds were able to seize those assets. Here we have a quote. It says, from a Mr. Monaco, I believe, Deputy Attorney General. I'm sorry, Miss Lisa Monaco. It says here, we also call on all companies dealing with cryptocurrency. We need you to root out cryptocurrency abuses. To those who do not, we will hold you accountable where we can. So basically, any exchange will be subject to invasion by the FBI. And basically, exchanges are going to be forced or else to comply with the FBI and hand over any said documents and cooperation that they need. That part is not new. In fact, if you want to learn about that a little bit more, let's go to, I'll show you another video you should definitely watch by Cyprian, and it's right here. Why crypto sucks in 2022, the open secret no one talks about. And he goes in and he basically explains, he talks about money transmission laws and regulations. And he says that's why crypto is starting to suck because, well, the feds, right? So it's only a 26-minute video. I suggest you guys go watch it and join Bitcoin Mystery School. I'll be there for the March 4th class. All right, let's go into the Freedom Convoy. Hold on real quick. Let me shout out the people who send me Cash App. Appreciate people who pay their tuition, for getting this great information. But I did get some Cash Apps yesterday, so I appreciate those people and just want to give them some love. Shout out to Renee Vogel, Fernando Martinez, Thomas LaFontaine, Dame Digital, Pariah the Boneless, Khaled Cooper. Khaled Cooper always consistently supports. I appreciate you. And super chats are always welcome as well. Thank you. Okay, so it says regulating cryptocurrency under Emergencies Act, not as clear as Freeland suggests. I find it quite hilarious that her name is Freeland. It's nothing even remotely close to being a person advocating for living in a free land. So I'm not going to read the subtitle. So here it says Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland said Monday the government would require all crowdfunding platforms and the payment service providers they use to register with FinTrack, basically, Financial Transactions Reporting Analysis Center. If you saw my previous presentation on this, you guys should be familiar with this information. And they want them to report large and suspicious transactions to FinTrack. That includes, as you see here, transactions exceeding $10,000. Okay. She said the government is broadening the scope of Canada's anti-money laundering and terrorist financing rules so they cover crowdfunding platforms and the payment service providers they use. So that could be like Stripe, PayPal, etc. Freeland noted these changes cover all forms of transactions, including digital assets such as cryptocurrencies. Now, she's completely uninformed, but really what she wants to do is she wants to clamp down on financial institutions or money transmitters and come down on them. That's basically what she wants to do. Anybody that's an intermediary. You got to remember, though, if we go ahead and we look up Bitcoin, let's look up the Bitcoin white paper. Let's see. So it says right here, Bitcoin white paper, and it says abstract, a purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash that would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. So she wants to come down on cryptocurrencies, but Bitcoin was created to not have any intermediary. It was created literally to avoid going through financial institutions. So she can try as she might. She can try with all her heart. And all she's going to do is she's going to clamp down on people who are uneducated about Bitcoin. And those people will be affected. But the people who are technically savvy, which it doesn't take much to do, like I said, you sign up for BitcoinMysterySchool.com, get educated. It's an investment in your future. Again, you can't say end the Fed and not be involved in Bitcoin. Officials said further details of new regulations enacted under the Emergencies Act will be published online. They were not available by press time. Of course not. They don't know what they're doing. Ryan Clements, chair in business law and regulation at the University of Calgary, said FinTrack already regulates money services. And that's what I just told you. I told you they've already put these measures into place. So a lot of this stuff is not new. FinTrack is already regulated, and we've gone over that in the previous presentation. Like those that transfer Bitcoin into government issued currency. So let's break that down. The transferring of Bitcoin into government issued currency. So people are concerned with the fact that the money masters are telling people what to do with their money. But what you have to understand is it's not your money. It's their money. It literally says on here, Federal Reserve note. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. This is a debt note. It's a debt note. You don't own this. You might have it in your possession, but you don't own it. This is their money. This is their patent. So when you're using this, you are under their jurisdiction. You are under their jurisdiction. So people talk about, oh, well, what about transferring Bitcoin into the dollar? And that's when they get you when you transfer it to the dollar. And my question is, why are you transferring it into the dollar? Don't measure the price of Bitcoin by dollars. Measure the price of dollars by Bitcoin. That's how we have to start thinking about this thing. Okay? That's how you have to start thinking about this. Now, can you swap your dollars for Bitcoin? Absolutely. Now, once you go from there, the Bitcoin is, again, I wouldn't keep it on the exchange. I put it in a paper wallet. I would look into how to wash wallets, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to talk about that in a moment soon, too. But again, They're talking about the transfer of Bitcoin. So it's like, yeah, you got your Bitcoin, but once you step into our world, we got you. We got you. And we're going to move into the next session here, what they are very aware of. And it says, but so-called self-custody of cryptocurrency, where the individual holds the keys to cryptocurrency themselves instead of relying on an intermediary, isn't regulated. Did you hear that? Shout out to Natasha K. Lane, just posted a link to my book. Thank you. I appreciate you. Everybody go get a copy of the Patriot Report. Says it right there. Is not regulated. I don't know how they're going to regulate it. I don't know if they can. That's why they're trying to work with other countries, right? We talked about that in a previous article. They're trying to work with other countries. Why? Because if the United States institutions won't allow me to transact or swap currencies, well, some people go through a VPN and access foreign exchanges, foreign intermediaries, and do business in foreign countries and exchange their currencies that way. And there's nothing the government can do about that. Again, technically savvy people. I'm not going to go into the legalities of all of that. I would suggest speaking to an attorney. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a crypto attorney. But I'm just warning you. Be careful. Ren Wesley says, love your work, brother. Thank you, Ren. Thank you for supporting the channel. You are appreciated. God will bless you. You're going to have a great year, sir. So again, is not regulated when you hold the keys. We're going to talk about this soon. We're going to go into another article. And we're going to talk about this soon. The key question is how the Canadian government could regulate that space, Clemens says. And that's what they're trying to figure out. It's like, how do we regulate this? How do we regulate something where there's no intermediary? There's no financial institution. How? So we have a quote here says, what I see is the biggest gap in crypto is self-custody, peer-to-peer, because how would you get reporting on that? He said, you would effectively need to regulate Bitcoin to be able to do that. And Bitcoin has no manager. There's no CEO at Bitcoin. Nobody knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is, right? So how do you regulate something that has no CEO? There's no corporation. There's no board of directors. Clemens said the whole purpose originally of Bitcoin and analogs to Bitcoin was to disintermediate. And FinTrack rules apply to intermediaries. What happens when there are no intermediaries? It is literally the equivalent of handing cash. And that's what we talked about in the Bitcoin white paper. A purely peer-to-peer version. When you talk to people about Bitcoin, this is the main sentence you need to memorize. Paraphrase it however you see. But this is the main sentence you need to memorize. A purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash that would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. FinTrack only governs intermediaries. B. Weezy Bird, he said that's why guys don't get scared of the Biden crypto executive order next week. Just keep your Bitcoin and you're free. Exactly. You can't say, oh my God, end the Fed and then want to hold on to cash and then talk bad about Bitcoin. You can't do that. Those ideas are diametrically opposed. It's just like when the left says defund the police, but we need to have mandates, and the people don't follow these mandates, arrest them. These two ideas are diametrically opposed. You're no better than the left when you do this. No better than the left. We talked about with the truckers, right? The Freedom Convoy, right? And we're going to get into that in just a moment. We're going to talk about the couple that got their assets seized because they stole it. And we're going to talk about the Freedom Envoy. But the Freedom Envoy, when you're sending Bitcoin, people are like, oh, but how are they going to transfer that back into the dollar? Why are you transferring it into the dollar? Stop it. Stop it. I literally sell my books. You can purchase it with the dollar, But you can also purchase it with Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash. I even accept Doge. I transfer all them shits back into Bitcoin. But if you got those currencies, I accept them on my website, hotepjesus.com. I accept cryptocurrency as payment. I do transactions as payment. Last year, I did a big consulting contract for someone. I said, can you pay me in Bitcoin? And I've never turned that Bitcoin into cash. I still have that Bitcoin. Why are we trying to use their system? Bitcoin is not about, the price of Bitcoin, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's cool and all. The price is going to go up purely out of necessity, as you can see what they're doing, right? Out of necessity. But it's about an alternate economy. It's about rendering the government impotent, powerless. That's what this is about. Like freedom. Aren't we all about freedom? Being able to do what we want without the government snooping in our business? Anti-Patriot Act? Isn't that what we want? Aren't we tired of the bankers ruling our lives? They've ruled our lives since 1776. Prior, the way I tracked it back. Are we not tired yet? It says the new rules will impose new requirements on crowdfunding platforms, again, an intermediary, where the convoy protesters have raised millions since the protest began. The first fundraiser on GoFundMe raised over $10 million, of which an initial $1 million went to protesters before the platform said it would stop payments and refund to the rest of the donors. Clemens said if a virtual currency transfer service is providing services to a Canadian, again, an intermediary, then the rules stipulate it should be registering with FinTrack no matter where it's located. Okay? It's possible that an organizer could find a foreign platform or some foreign entity that will convert their virtual currency. Remember, we just talked about that. I said they're trying to work with, where is it? No, it's in this article right here. The government will also look at coordinating with other countries around the world to standardize rules for crypto. Why? Because an organizer, such as the people of the Freedom Convoy, could find a foreign platform or some foreign entity that will convert their virtual currency. They are very afraid, people. They are very afraid. And they're going to lose. They are going to lose. The powers that be are going to lose. Just is what it is. That's the white pill, okay? I'm here to say it. They're going to lose. Why do I know they're going to lose? Number one, because I believe in God. It's number one. It's number one, because I believe in God. Number two, because I believe in people. Because I believe in people. Number three, because the people at the top can't even agree with each other. Because they're all fighting amongst themselves anyway, so they're not organized. Also, they're not that smart. They're smart, but they ain't that smart. They still don't even know how to get a handle on Bitcoin. So they're not that smart. Let's go to the couple. It says Fed seized 3.6 billion in stolen Bitcoin. Arrest couple 5 years after massive crypto exchange hack. So people are like, oh my God, what are you going to do when the Fed seize your Bitcoin? Well, let's take a look at how they seized the Bitcoin. According to the DOJ on Tuesday, special agents obtained court-authorized search warrants to go through the couple's online accounts and were able to find files containing the private keys. Once they have your keys, they have your coins. That's why you store your keys up here. If I want to hop on a boat and go to Thailand, I can bring my Bitcoin with me right here. It's in my mind. You start writing down your Bitcoin and storing the files and whatnot, it's no bueno. It's no bueno. They're going to snatch that. They're going to snatch that. So do not store it in any files. Now, I think the reason why they stored it was because they were practicing money laundering, which means they were opening up probably, I don't know how many hundreds of wallets, maybe thousands of wallets. And there's no way they're going to memorize all the keys to all those wallets, which is why they probably had to store the private keys like that. Right. But again, their cybersecurity stunk and the feds were able to get access to their keys. And that's the problem. That's the problem. So no, the feds didn't hack anything. They didn't hack into their account and take their Bitcoin. No, these people mismanaged their private keys and the feds took them. It's that simple. It's that simple. Next, we have this article here. It says Bitcoin is a bad way to fund the Ottawa protest, and that's a good thing. What? This is from CoinDesk. This is supposed to be, a company, I guess, on our side, on the Bitcoin side of things. It's written by this dude named JP Koenig. You guys know how I like to highlight these writers. Here he is, JP Koenig. Wow, I was able to click on this earlier. Anyway, here's JP Koenig right here on the right hand side. JP Koenig, a CoinDesk columnist, worked as an entity researcher at Canadian brokerage firm and financial writer at a large Canadian bank. So he literally works for the bank. He works for the bankers. So this is the guy writing this article. Now, when I clicked through here, it brought me, where's his social media accounts? I don't know his social media accounts, but last time I clicked through to that, it gave me an email, but it doesn't appear like this guy has any social media accounts. I don't know where this page has disappeared to, but it was there before. Anyway, I'm not going to get into the conspiracy theory thing about that. So let's see what his argument says, because he's claiming that Bitcoin is a bad way to fund the Ottawa protest. What? So you'll see. So it says Bitcoin has been advertised as a viable way for getting funds to the truck convoy protesters in Ottawa when fiat-based tools like GoFundMe don't work. But it has proven to be less than an ideal way to fund the trucker convoy. And that's a good thing for Canadian Democratic Society. Red flag. Red flag right there. Whose side are we on? Are we on the side of democracy? Are we on the side of freedom? Are we on the side of individualism, self-sovereignty, individual sovereignty? Because democracy is no bueno. It's no good. No good. Democracy literally destroys individual freedom. B. Weezy Bird said, when folks in El Salvador that sell coconuts, which you can see on YouTube, understand Bitcoin more than us, government shows why we will win. Facts. Facts. You got little side of the street stands accepting Bitcoin. You telling me the truckers in Canada can't transact in Bitcoin? If they're hungry, they can't buy pizza or whatever with Bitcoin. There's nobody's going to accept that. Maybe because we're behind. But the third world countries like El Salvador are transacting in Bitcoin just fine. Free of the IMF and all the garbage that comes along with the big banks. What do you guys want? Do you really want freedom? Because you can have it. You can have freedom. It says good for a Canadian Democratic Society, aka good for the state, not for the people, good for the state. He continues, he says the 20-day Ottawa protest has long since transitioned into illegal territory. This is another red flag. Illegal territory. Again, in order for something to be illegal, you need an arbiter. You need a judge. Somebody has to make the decision to say what is and is not illegal. And that is always the state. So if you believe in legalities and illegalities, you are a statist. You are a statist. That's what you are. You believe in the state. You are a federalist. You are no better than Alexander Hamilton. It says, like any other illegal protest on Canadian soil, it needs to be ended. So he's calling for an end to the Freedom Convoy. Who is this guy? I can't trust him. I cannot trust this guy. And why is he allowed to write on Bitcoin sites? This is complete opposite of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is supposed to be anarchist, anti-statist, all about freedom, F the government. And this guy is talking about the freedom convoy needs to end. No, you need to end writing, sir. Mr. I work at a large Canadian bank. You work for the bank and you want to write on a Bitcoin site? What? Conflict of interest? Hello? He said, unreliable funding only helps to reduce the mischief, especially if that funding can be nudged into functioning even less reliably. Let's break that down. What does he deem as mischief? That's a red flag. Is he saying that the truckers who are just dancing in the street are mischievous? I saw a video the other day, the truckers hugging the police officers out there. The mountaineers, I guess they call them. Police is like, yo, y'all can keep doing y'all thing, man. We not messing with y'all. And this is my argument before, where I said they're going to bring in robot police and they're going to bring in international police. That's what the whole defund the police movement is about. It's about removing federal police and replacing them with robots and Interpol, like international police. It's just literally what it is. David Zientara, I side with the truckers because if they fulfill their goals, a major part of the bear bug regime will be smashed. Exactly. This is our freedom we're talking about right here. And this guy is talking about mischief. Mischief? After we just had to deal with fake news for 2.5 years that set our kids back, that destroyed 100,000 small businesses in the first 2 months of the pandemic. That's what this guy is calling mischief? No, mischief is what they've done to us. And he says, I'm going to read the sentence again, because I was like, when I read the sentence, I was like, yo, this guy cannot be serious. Unreliable funding only helps to reduce the mischief, especially if that funding can be nudged into functioning even less reliably. So he's all about disrupting the supply chain of resources to the Freedom Convoy. Mr. I work at a large Canadian bank. He's all about that, which I said the other day was a hostile act of war. It's a hostile act of war to cut off the supply lines to the troops. So he said, when protest becomes illegal, again, when did the protest become illegal? When Trudeau decided it was illegal? He said it's the task of the police to step in and break it up. Any inability to do so on their part hurts one of the other key pillars of, and again, he uses the term democratic society. They love using this word. Anytime you hear somebody say democracy or democratic society and say it in a positive way, they're either ignorant or they're trying to enslave you. That just is what it is. And even if they're ignorant, they're inadvertently trying to enslave you. So you have to be careful when people use these things in a positive term. Rule of law, right? Now, the same people who said defund the police say, yo, we need the police to stop these freedom truckers. Which one is it? It says if the law no longer functions, Canada would quickly descend into a state of perpetual chaos. False. And we're going to do this. We're going to do this very simply. I'm going to put a poll in, and we're going to ask the question: are people naturally good, or are generally good or bad? And we're going to see what you people think, and then I'll give you my answer. My answer is people are generally good. I leave the house, people open the door for you, they're nice, they're friendly, they're saying hi. You know what kind of people are generally not good? People who have been oppressed by the state. People who have been oppressed by the state are generally unhappy. You remove the state, You remove the Fed through their manipulation of currency, which has trashed our economy several times, created hyperinflation to our dollar. Yes, we've already experienced hyperinflation. We've already gone over this. 1917, the end of the Bretton Woods Agreement. We experienced hyperinflation, and we're still experiencing it now. Now we're experiencing Bidenflation or Joeflation. But he says, without the law, or AKA without the state, without the government, Canada will quickly descend into a state of perpetual chaos. I believe the opposite will happen. I believe without the state, without the government, things will quickly become peaceful. Things will quickly become very peaceful. Because people can operate without the concern of, oh my God, what's the government going to do? So he continues, he says, Give Sengo boasted that the restraint order didn't apply to it, but it was an empty boast. Any Canadian bank that received a wire transfer from Give Sengo for credit to the convoy's bank account was obligated to immediately freeze it on pain of breaking the law. The order had neatly crippled the $9 million crowdsource funds. Okay. Again, intermediary. If you sent it to a bank account, they can control that. They can control that, which is contrary to what he says here. Bitcoin is a bad way to fund the Ottawa protest. No, it's a good way to do that. Mr. Koenig, Mr. I work at a large Canadian bank. He continues, he said, the coordinators of the Bitcoin fundraiser have since shifted to a complicated strategy of paying Bitcoins directly to truckers. The idea being to avoid single points of control. Let's look at that so-called complicated strategy. If you click through this link, you'll see ideas like using the Tails browser, which protects against surveillance and censorship. Right? You have people like Edward Snowden, who say this is a good browser to use. Co-founder of the Tor project says it's a good browser to use. So the powers that be can't play Snoopy. So you can go through this document and see how you can actually operate with technology as a sovereign individual without the feds bothering you, without the feds even knowing what you're doing. Okay. So I'm not going to go into that document. You guys can peruse that. I suggest making a copy of it for your own record. It's a Google Doc, so you can just hit file and make a copy. It says to avoid single points of control. That's the whole point of Bitcoin. Sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. That's the whole point. But evading centralized infrastructure means subjecting truckers to all of Bitcoin's pain points, reducing the fundraiser's effectiveness so it shouldn't be much more of a concern to law enforcement. How do you write for CoinDesk and just lambast Bitcoin like this? Bitcoin's pain points. There's no pain points with Bitcoin. There are learning curves. These aren't pain points. Is it a pain point for the dude selling bananas on the side of the street in El Salvador? Where are his pain points? Because he's real happy doing transactions like that. So what pain points is this guy talking about? He says here, in addition, financial institutions must disclose to Royal Canadian Mounted Police or Canada's Intelligence Agency, CSIS, whether they are holding funds for participants in the protest. So again, financial institutions working with the government, just is what it is. He says the measures will help foil Bitcoin person-to-person funding attempts. What? How? How? You just said it couldn't. Now you're saying that the measures will help. He contradicted himself, because what he's saying here is person to person. But if you're going through an intermediary for your Bitcoin transactions, that's not person to person. So he's using double speak here. This is double speak. The RCMP has sent letters to Canadian cryptocurrency exchanges. Again, intermediaries. Red flag. Asking them to cease dealing in 30 different Bitcoin addresses. So they're trying to seize the addresses that are associated with these cryptocurrency exchanges. That's why you need to have your own wallet. If you're in Bitcoin mystery school, you learn how to create your own wallet. It's not that hard. He teaches you, I think it takes like 20 minutes to teach you how to do that. Presumably, those involved in the Tallycoin fundraiser, because Bitcoin transactions are public and traceable, exchanges will be able to freeze trucker accounts if they are linked to embargoed addresses. So embargoed addresses, again, refer to any of the cryptocurrency exchanges. But you, with your little paper wallet, they have no idea that a transaction went from somebody in the US to somebody at the Freedom Convoy. If you do this properly, they have no way of knowing that. But if you go through one of their intermediaries, then yes. The powers afforded by the Emergency Measures Act make me very uncomfortable. So here he's saying he doesn't agree with the Emergency Measures Act. Like, what? Bro, you just sat here and said funding an illegal protest isn't right in any currency, even if the government's use of Emergency Measures Act should worry all Canadians. Even if. And now here you talking about you worry? Which one is it, bro? It's one thing to use regular legal channels like Section 490.8 of the Criminal Code to secure restraint orders on large actors involved in mischief and unlawful blockades. That seems like a reasonable addition to law enforcement's arsenal of tools for ending illegal protests. We know it worked. The $9 million in GoFundMe funds are immobilized. Donald Trump is in the chat. Well, a Donald Trump is in the chat. He says, we're in the revolution, boys, and Hotep Jesus is the news now.
That Hotep Jesus dude.
Hotep to the chat. Again, we warned you. Project Hamilton is coming. Any questions? Comments? Concerns? I'll read some of the best in the chat. If you want to guarantee that your question gets concerned, drop it as a super chat. I may read some out of the chat. I'll stick around for another 5 minutes. I have an interview at 5 p.m. I think. No. Yeah, I think it's 5 p.m. So look out for that. I'm going to be talking about Bitcoin with somebody, I believe. And then Hotep's been told you at 8 p.m. tonight, Eastern Time. Jev, what up, Jev? Shout out to Jev. Jev's the one that's working on the JRE section of Men of Order, doing a great job. If you guys missed that, we have a dedicated Joe Rogan section on our website now, menoforder.com. Just navigate to JRE, and we have a synopsis of, we started with episode 1774. We're not going retroactive, but going forth, we're going to give you summaries of JRE. Shout out to Jev. Jev said, what is an illegal protest? Exactly. What do they deem an illegal protest? Exactly. Who gets to make that decision? Who's the arbiter? Who's the arbiter? I am the arbiter. The Canadian Bank article about Bitcoin is really just a self-expose. Exactly. Exactly. Christian McNair said, why not Monero? Why not Monero? I'm not opposed to Monero. Monero is a privacy coin with a private blockchain. I'm completely not opposed to it. I think Monero is probably like my one exception, just because it has a privacy change. You see this poll? I'm going to end the poll right now. Thank you. But everybody, we had 83%. So the majority said that they believe people are good. Darius said dope site design. Thank you. Appreciate you. Shout out to our partner, Phil Foster Fitness, who helped us get that site together. We have a partnership going with his supplements, so you can get shredded for the summer. Ask a Canadian about the 3 times they previously used the War Measures Act. Oh boy. Cold wallet or no wallet? What about paper wallet? I'm hearing paper wallets are good too. Perhaps better, because cold wallet you got to take with you. Paper wallet you can just store up here in your mind. I don't know. You guys tell me. I'm still learning. I'm still a student here. Yeah. Yeah, I agree, Goldman Sachs. People are generally 80% good and 20% bad. That sounds about right. So, in summation, Biden and his team are going to roll out the CBDC. That's my prediction. My prediction is this is part of their rollout to roll out the CBDC, take us away from the dollar. And if you really want to know about all of the potential dangers that could be included in that, we made a video on that. Shout out to Cyprian. I suggest you watch that, preferably as soon as possible. But it's right here, Project Hamilton, Bitcoin's evil brother, Boston Fed CBDC with Cyprian. It's right here on this channel. Currently at 2,943 views. And you see, we're talking about the CBDC February 11th. That was 6 days ago that we warned you about this. And here Biden's talking about bringing out none other than a CBDC. This is why you follow the Hoteps, y'all. Hotep's been told you. Hotep coin is on the back burner for right now. Jabari Judy said tuition paid. Thank you. He said you and Cyprian called this, but why isn't more people listening? You should put the hashtag FBA or ADOS. Then these sleepy Shans are watching and learn instead of arguing about nothing all day. You know, the intellectual conversations on this channel get less engagement than the frivolous ones. You know, when Joe Rogan was being canceled for using the N-word, we had, I don't know, close to 700 people on the live. I think today we probably breached 300 at some point. But this is why we're losing the battle right now, is because people are not concerned with intellectual matters. They're concerned with the emotional matters, the things that they can easily understand, right? It's easy to understand emotions. It's not so easy to understand cryptocurrencies, monetary policy, et cetera, et cetera. But when people decide that they want to be intellectual, there's nothing that the powers that be can do to stop us. It's nothing. Shout out to Renee Vogel, our in-house graphic designer. But there's nothing they can do to stop us once we decide. That's why I do intellectual content on this channel. That's why all the Hoteps do intellectual content on their channels. Right? But people who are not in tune, who are not watching the Hoteps and not knowing that we're usually ahead of things, well, they'll be subject to the jurisdiction of the oligarchs at a higher degree than most of us. Those who listen to the Hoteps and watch our content will be ahead of things, and you will not be at the same level under the jurisdiction of the oligarchs. Christian McNair, thank you, sir. I appreciate you paying the tuition today, paying the tab, keeping the channel going. Ren Wesley, thank you. Be Weezy Bird, thank you twice. David Zian Tara, thank you. Jabari Judah, thank you. Christian McNair, thank you. Thank you to all my super chatters. I am
that Hotep Jesus dude.
And I'll see y'all later on tonight. Love y'all. Hotep and Bill.